Mark's discourse, when you see that nation rises against nation, you see the tribulation begins and there's famines and all this is the beginnings of sorrows, all the way to the point where the abomination of desolation takes place. You see nothing about false Christs or false prophets. It's not till the time of the abomination of desolation that we then read, for false Christs and false prophets shall arise. This means the Antichrist and the false prophet. But when do we see it? At the time of the abomination of desolation, not the first portion of seals. Meaning, yes, the Antichrist spirit will be here and the false prophet, but that power and that authority of when he really takes forward and steps forward isn't going to happen until World War III has broken out. You see, we show that in this as well. This lion, bear, leopard, this time of battling in World War III that's going to break out after Jerusalem is attacked and destroyed. You see, and the land is at rest and so forth. What happens is during this battling that's going on, it's the first portion of seals. There is nobody standing up and being the supreme ruler, the Antichrist ruler over the earth at that time. It's a battle and things being put into position during, I believe, the first 2.5 to 3 years of the tribulation of seals. It's not till that 2.5 to 3 years later, which is, you see, the second half of Mark's discourse, when the false prophet and the false Christ shows up. Just like Revelation chapter 13, you see, in Revelation chapter 13, it relates to the war. Okay, there he is having a mouth, spoke like a dragon, one of his heads. Okay, in verse 3, Revelation 13, verse 3, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded unto death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? You see, the world will have been so devastated, so just incredibly devastated, including some going after Christians in that time too, but not to the extent that it will be after Antichrist really takes his power. See, after World War III, during all of this time and famine and pest and all these things of World War III, people will be screaming for somebody to stand up. And that is when the Antichrist will receive his power to continue 42 months, meaning he was there at the beginning, but at this point is when he's really going to take his power and authority, and everybody is going to fall into line. This is what we're talking about. This is when we then see the second beast, the Antichrist, the false prophet. And this is when he's going to have people take the mark and so forth. This is how we know it's not the mark of the beast yet. We are not in tribulation. There's been no pre-trib, and there is proof of pre-trib everywhere we can show and have shown. All right. So that's why this whole vaccine is the build up to destroy people. All right. So when we go back into Mark, as we were saying, this is one of those fascinating things that we spoke about, that we revealed, is that there's no conversation of the Antichrist or the false Christ and the false prophet stepping in until that time of the abomination of desolation. When you come into Matthew's, and then I'll go back to Mark's in a moment. When we come into Matthew's portion, we see that before the abomination of desolation, there's only talk of false prophets. You see, these are the little nuggets of gold. They're just so incredible. And why is it? Because this is when the Antichrist and false prophet, there's the beginning of seals, Then they step on the scene. Then the 42 months to continue. But what happens at the end of seals? The Lord comes on Mount Zion, and what happens? The Father's with him, the Ancient of Days, and he kills the Antichrist. But he doesn't kill the false prophet and the 10 kings. He takes away their power and authority and everything. But they still have time to continue. Only the Antichrist was killed. So the false prophet is still there. So during the time when the Lord is here, who's still alive during the first half of trumpets? The false prophet. And there he is in the first half of trumpets. But then what happens? There's an abomination of desolation. This is when Satan's been cast down. This is mid-trumpets. Messiah is going to be cut off because Satan's being cast down. And when Satan's cast down, look at what we see again. There's false Christs and false prophets again. What on earth is the false Christ doing there again? It's because he gets resurrected when the pit is opened. When is the pit open? At mid-trumpets, when Satan is cast down. At the 5th trumpet, the pit is open, and this is when Antichrist is going to be resurrected. Isn't that fantastic? I don't mean fantastic that that's going to happen, but isn't it mind-blowing? This is what's taken place. I've shared this before. There's been a lot of new people since I shared it. But let me share this as I start to wind this down. I don't know how far I'm in. I can't see I can see this time over here, but I don't know what time I started. Maybe close to 2 hours, so I won't go too much longer. But I love it when I get going, man. I get all wound up. I needed it. So let's go back into Mark. I want to show something for newer people, even slightly newer people, because I haven't shared this for a little while. As we're talking about this here in the discourses, there's a really fascinating piece here in relation to the abomination of desolation. Okay, you may have heard me talk about how it says standing. Okay, the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing where it ought not. Let him that readeth understand. What this is everybody, we've been taught that there's one abomination of desolation, but there are two. You see just how I showed you there was Antichrist and false prophet. Then Antichrist is killed and it's only false prophet. Then Satan is cast down and the pit is opened. Antichrist comes up, and that would make it what? Antichrist, false prophet, and Satan. Well, you know what? We've been told that it's false prophet and the Antichrist is Satan. If that were true, then how on earth in Revelation 16 verse 13, how on earth is it possible that it says, and I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, Satan, and the beast, Antichrist, and the false prophet, There are 3 of them. I just revealed to you here the understanding of all 3. Okay, this is what's going on. All 3 of them are true. So who is it during seals? It's the Antichrist with the false prophet. In trumpets time, it's Satan that goes after the Jews. It's Satan that is going to stand in the rebuilt temple and declare himself to be God. But that's not Mark's. You see, in Mark's discourse, it says standing where it ought not. Now that you know that Mark is different than Matthew, you'll understand that in Daniel, in chapter 11, there's an abomination of desolation. And in chapter 12, there's an abomination of desolation. That's because there are 2. One is Mark's in Daniel 11, and the one in Matthew's is in Daniel 12. And the reason the wording is different from from Mark 13 to Matthew 24, it says standing where it ought not. Okay, in Matthew's, it says standing in the holy place. Well, that's not what it says here. It says standing where it ought not. And the word stand can also mean to place. So to place something where it shouldn't be. Okay, remember, this is the portion of seals What do we know happens at this time? The mark of the beast. Okay, to place something where it ought not. Well, check this out. When we see it in Matthew, we see, as I said, stand in the holy place. Okay, so this is him standing in the holy place. Let's see the word. See, it's literally in. It's standing in the holy place. Why? Because just as I showed you, the first half of trumpets is the rebuilding of the city and the streets and the temple until Satan is cast down. This is when Satan is going to stand in the holy place. But do you know what it means in Mark? As I just shared, of course, you know it means it's the mark of the beast. Okay? So being placed where it shouldn't be. Well, people shouldn't be taking the mark of the beast when it comes. Do you want to know what the difference is between the two? Everybody thinks that this abomination of desolation has to do with a building. It does. Remember, Mark is the church, guys. Remember, Mark is the sleeping church, the Gentiles, and the sleeping church. The temple is what? Within. The temple is still within during the portion of seals. And it's going to remain within until, where is it? Think of Romans 11. Okay, Romans 11, starting in verse 22. It's going to remain the temple of God within them until the fullness of the Gentiles. Remember? Starting in verse 22. It says, behold, therefore, the goodness and the severity of God on them which fell severity, the Jews, okay? But toward the goodness, talking about the Gentiles, if thou continue in goodness, otherwise thou shalt also be cut off. So anybody, this isn't a once saved, always saved spiel, but if once saved, always saved was true, you wouldn't have this piece of scripture. Okay? But if you continue in goodness, if you continue in me, but if you don't, you'll be cut off just like they were. You see? There is no such thing as once saved, always saved. And it says, and they also, if they abide not still in unbelief, shall be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. Let's go into verse 25. For I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles is come in. Okay? Until the fullness of the Gentiles is come in. The fullness of the Gentiles does not come in until the end of seals at the rapture. Okay? The fullness of the Gentiles needs to come in. It's just like we shared not too long ago. When you look at the Psalms, in the chapters to years of Psalms, you see that 124 is the end of seals, the end of the 6 years, I should say, of seals. When you come into chapter 24, it says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. This is the fullness of the world, the fullness of the Gentiles. And then it says, who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? Right? Who shall stand in the holy place? He that has clean hands. These are those that had to wash their hands in the tribulation of seals. Chapter 18 is those whose hands were already clean. Okay, which is the beginning, which is the escape portion. See, there's that fullness coming to an end. So again, in Mark 13, what we're seeing is a mark of the beast being placed where it ought not. But during seals, there is no rebuilding of the city and the streets. There is no rebuilding of the temple. You see, that's the same thing we've showed it many times. That's why Daniel chapter 9 says 7 weeks where it's nothing. This is the 7 weeks they've been removed. Then Messiah comes, in the 3.5 years they're rebuilding the city and the streets and the wall until the time he's cut off. 7 and 3.5, 10.5 years. What's that 10.5 years? You got it. To the point Satan is cast out and the pit is opened. There's your seals. This is when Antichrist is ruling the world. This is when Satan is coming to rule from Jerusalem. There is no rebuilding of the city and streets and temple. Only the foundation is going to be laid in about the 4th year of seals. But then it'll all be stopped. That's the only thing that's going to happen in Jerusalem at that time. Okay? There is no temple there. No physical temple there. What do you think that means? No physical temple there. So if there's no physical temple, then what temple do you think it is? That's right. The temple within, because it is not yet the fullness of the Gentiles. This is about placing the mark of the beast in the temple of God, or on the temple of God. Okay? Us, the church. Well, not us, but the sleeping church that's waking up during that time. Okay? Putting it in the people, but none of the sleeping church will be taking this mark. All that billion plus and however many might still be alive, they will not take this mark. Many will die, but many will be surviving, hiding out in places protected when they flee to the mountains. Okay? When they go to hide out in the wilderness. Now, here's the thing. What temples do we know of that we could share from history? See, this is what I talked about. I haven't shared this in a long time. Remember Moses' temple? Do you know the description of Moses' temple? The tabernacle was a portable tent. Isn't man portable? We can get up and move around too, just like Moses' temple. And Moses' temple was what? Covered in skins. A portable temple covered in skin. What is the understanding of Mark's temple, or of Mark's abomination of desolation standing where it ought not? It's the portable temple covered in flesh, covered in skin. You see, it's the Lord God within. But when the fullness of the Gentiles comes to an end, and trumpets time then follows, and it is now the time of Jacob's trouble and Matthew's discourse, when this abomination of desolation takes place, it says it's standing in the holy place. How is it now standing in the holy place? Because it is the temple that was being rebuilt with the city and the streets while the Lord was overseeing on Mount Zion. They were rebuilding the city and the streets and the temple. And what temple is the type and shadow of that one? You got it. Solomon's temple. A physical temple being built while the city and the streets are being rebuilt. Why? Because at the fullness of the Gentiles, when trumpets begins, the Lord is here on Zion, and they now must build that place. You see, without going too much longer, you'll remember that there's a connection to Zerubbabel. All right? Zerubbabel is the one, somebody had mentioned this, so it was a good tie-in as I bring this to an end. Zerubbabel is the one whose name he was from Babylon, right? It means sown in Babylon. Okay, so he's from Babylon, but he's Jewish. Now, I personally believe that it's possible. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying I've had the idea that it could be that this is Jared Kushner. Okay, he's been trying to get things done for them, to rebuild for that temple for a long time. And again, I'm not saying it is. It's just what a suspicion that I have. All right. Well, in Zechariah chapter 4, see, we know Zechariah, and it's Zechariah chapter 4 when the foundation is being laid. Remember, I said the foundation is going to be laid during mid seals, approximately mid seals at about the fourth year. But then everything's going to come to a stop. It's the same story of Cyrus. It's the same story as Solomon. You see, when you then go read the story in Haggai, he says, look, you tried to build it and I sent you blasting and mildew and all those things and hail. You know, he says, but now it's time to build. You know, what are you guys doing building your houses when mine is still vacant? You see, that's the first half of trumpets. They're going to be rebuilding now the city and the streets and the temple. But the foundation, a spiritual foundation, is being laid during seals for the spiritual New Jerusalem by the apostles. But there is going to be a physical foundation laid in Jerusalem as well to get things prepared. But then it's going to stop. And then when the Lord comes, for the next 3.5 years, they will rebuild the city and the streets and the temple. That will bring it to that 10.5 year, which you could say in that 11-year mark. So it went from the 4th year to the 11th year. Well, guess what? Look at the story of Solomon's temple when they built the physical temple. Right? The story is in 1 Kings chapter 6. Check it out. It's fantastic. It proves our entire 14-year timeline. Listen to what it says. 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 37-38. In the 4th year was the foundation of the house of the Lord laid. Zechariah chapter 4. Zechariah has 14 chapters. It's the 14 years. It relates to Judah. That's why it's in Zechariah. Okay. In the 4th year, the foundation was laid. And in the 11th year, in the month of Bul, which is the 8th month, was the house finished. What was the total time? 7 years in building it, but it took 11 total. Hello. Seals, 4th year. The foundation is going to be laid during seals. Then the building will stop. It will come from the declaration that Cyrus is going to make at the beginning. This modern day Cyrus. Then the foundation will get laid here. Then it will stop because this Antichrist period. Then when the Lord returns and everything is being established while trumpets are taking place on the earth, Jerusalem is being rebuilt. The city, the streets, the city, the streets, and the temple. And when it's over and it's built, how long do you think that is? You got it. 11 years. And it started what? In the 4th year, taking 7 years. 11 years total. The foundation laid to the building being complete at mid trumpets is what? The exact story to Solomon's temple when the physical temple, which was then to be built, that Satan himself, having been cast down from heaven, having lost his battle in heaven, will then come stand in the holy place. The first one, man, Lord dwelling within the Gentiles, within the church, within the people, But when the Lord comes at the end of seals, he is now here, and the physical temple will be once again built on land that had now taken its rest for the 7 years that they had not allowed during these past 50 years since they've had it. Brothers and sisters, this kind of stuff is just mind-blowing. This is the kind of teaching that I just get fired up over because it proves it out. From the beginning, prior even to seals, right through into trumpets, right through into the end of trumpets, it is proven out over and over and over again. The scriptures are revealing that our revelation is true. This is perfect. Did I find this right away at the beginning of the revelation of the 14 years? No, I didn't discover this till after 2 years later, 2.5 years later. And it was perfect. One is a physical man, flesh covered moving temple, and the second will be the physical Solomon temple because the Lord's here. Brothers and sisters, I pray this blesses you. I pray that it strengthens you. I pray that you seek it yourselves, that you study it and you go and understand it, discern it in the Gospels for yourselves, and let it just soak in how mind-blowing and how awesome the Lord is, that he's revealing these things to us for such a time as this. And let's keep our eyes open for next week, brothers and sisters, because I believe this is the final call. If I'm wrong and it's still not yet, we are at the door. We are at the precipice. We are moments away. But wow, what a fit this artificial star may very well end up being. I love you guys. I thank you guys. I thank you for your encouragement. I thank you all who are in the forum, 700 and some odd, all of you guys in the forum. We're sharing, we're praying. Pray for our sister's family. Our dear sister Ellie passed away. She is with the Lord. Remember what Paul said? To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Our dear Ellie, we are so looking forward to come and joining you, to meeting you face to face. I'm so happy that your pain is now gone. And we pray for your family and friends who remain, that they be strengthened in knowing where you are, and that very, very, very soon we will be there with you too, in the presence of the Lord, as we watch and pray to be accounted worthy. God bless you. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for everything. I love you, and we will talk again very soon. Bye for now.